I told you you can't trust these niggas. Now Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
Or there was always battling a part of the culture. What happened to they battling each other? You gotta look back at it when time passes and you look and you say, you said things that agitated each other to the point that you might have wanted to run into it.
50 Cent drops shocking new evidence that reopens the Tupac and Biggie murders after 30 years frozen in repetition. That seal breaks in December 2025 with a Netflix docuseries built on never-aired material. Police audio, insider voices, and buried footage align into cause and effect. Silence reads as containment, not absence. Once the frame shifts, the past moves again.
Or you would have ran into each other right away.
Right.
Because what I consider beef is we're not waiting for you to just be in the same place.
Right.
You know, that's waiting to take the L, actually. Because if y'all have a serious issue, you need to address that
Immediately.
right.
What made this moment different was control over the full picture. For the first time, one producer assembled evidence from both murders into a single sequence rather than two separate legends. Police proffer recordings sat beside industry testimony, while suppressed visuals filled gaps long ignored. The effect was simple and heavy. Events once seen as distant suddenly connected. Fans heard voices that were present then, speaking now with clarity. The series did not chase shock. It reorganized memory. When information is aligned instead of scattered, the meaning changes without raising its voice.
Machiavelli.
Yeah, big album, Tupac.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I mean, it just had an energy to it that was different from everything that he actually created. There was a lot of Tupac material, but that was a specific moment.
This reframing pulled attention away from mystery and toward structure. The language moved from unanswered questions to organized decisions. The murders stopped living as isolated street moments and started reading like outcomes shaped by pressure, money, and timing. The docuseries showed how evidence can exist yet remain dormant when no one links it. Viewers were left with a clear thought. The past had not been solved earlier because it was never assembled this way. When the pieces finally touched, the story gained direction and weight. With that structure in place, Tupac's killing no longer appeared random. The fight at the MGM Grand became a trigger, not the root. On September 7th, 1996, the timeline tightened into minutes and steps. Surveillance footage showed the clash with Orlando Anderson. From there, Keith D's 2008 police proffer audio described the weapon, the car, the route, and the shooter's position. Each detail aligned with known forensic paths. The night unfolded as a chain, not a blur. That clarity removed chaos from the picture.
Wait, maybe I said I shoot my brother because he got Tupac killed.
The weapon mattered because it matched reality. Keith D described a .40 caliber Glock, and ballistic records already supported that trajectory. The account placed people, cars, and turns in exact order. That precision reframed the shooting as planned movement rather than chance violence. The delay in action also gained meaning. An arrest came in 2023, 27 years after Tupac was killed, marking the first charge ever filed. Time no longer suggested confusion. It suggested waiting. When events line up this tightly, randomness loses its place.
About something that is very serious, that is the allegations that Diddy allegedly hired someone to murder Tupac. And the story of Diddy allegedly hiring someone to get at Tupac is a story that's mixed up with a lot of different sides of stories, from Keefy D to Diddy's bodyguard.
Tupac was hit 4 times, survived 6 days, and died at 25. Those numbers have always been known, yet they read differently once context shifts. The focus moved away from who pulled the trigger and toward who shaped the situation. The question evolved into funding and direction. Why did retaliation follow so fast? Why did planning appear immediate? When cause replaces mystery, the story stops floating. It anchors. That anchor changed how the night in Las Vegas is understood by anyone listening closely. Money entered the frame next, and it did not arrive quietly. Street violence requires resources, planning, and approval. Keith D claimed a $1 million offer was made for Tupac and Suge Knight. He described a meeting in Anaheim with East Coast intermediaries during peak tension. The scale of that figure mattered in 1996 terms. It explained urgency. It explained coordination. It explained why response came hours later, not weeks later. The claim turned emotion into transaction and speed into signal.
But 50 decided to play on that because that's been the hot topic after Keefe D, got arrested. And he posted on his Instagram the last photo of Tupac alive, which is him in that BMW and then Suge.
The payment story carried another layer. Keefe D said only part of the money arrived because Suge's night survived. That detail shifted motive from anger to contract logic. Prosecutors now examine financial incentive as a central theory, not background noise. Authorities state these claims remain under investigation, yet their presence reshapes interpretation. When money crosses regions, actions gain purpose. Retaliation becomes execution. The idea of payment created continuity between events that once felt separate. It suggested planning that extended beyond one city and one night. Once money entered the picture, the future events began to align. If funds crossed coasts once, later violence followed the same map. The outline formed a path instead of a legend. Each piece did not need to prove guilt on its own. Together they explained timing, movement, and silence. The narrative did not rely on volume or accusation, it relied on sequence. When sequence appears, understanding follows. That is why this reframing changed everything for listeners willing to track facts carefully.
I done this for no reason, but I just do it that. All the crazy shit that I see online, right?
But today he
6 months after Tupac's death, the cycle reached its second point. On March 9, 1997, Los Angeles became the stage again, just after Soul Train weekend pulled the industry west. Biggie Smalls was there to promote life after death, moving through events that felt routine but carried heavy risk. Warnings existed, tension lingered, yet movement continued. When gunfire struck that night, it no longer looked like a separate tragedy. It looked like continuation. Time, place, and pressure lined up, making the second death feel connected rather than distant for listeners revisiting history with fresh context and disciplined attention today, clearly.
This cannot be all that you have. Is there other stuff that you just have not shown?
He has a baby by a woman that was dating Tupac.
Wow.
To add to it, but we had to cut it.
Biggie's presence in Los Angeles came with hesitation. Accounts show he resisted the trip, understanding the climate and the memory of what happened before. Promotion schedules pressed forward anyway. The album mattered. The calendar ruled. Security concerns lost ground to release plans. On the night of the shooting, witness Gene Deal described a dark sedan, a calm shooter, and precise movement. Police sketches echoed that description. The documentary adds unreleased footage, tightening the picture and reducing the space once filled by doubt. That clarity shifted public focus towards sequence and intent rather than surprise for many observers now listening closely.
To me, that what he was charged with, that's a victory. Like that, to end up with 50 months when you had when your life on the line is a victory.
When evidence from both murders sits side by side, coincidence loses strength. Biggie was killed at 24, and his album arrived 2 weeks later, turning promotion into memorial. That timing added weight. Competing theories once scattered across years narrowed toward retaliation paths. The series does not claim closure. It reshapes alignment. Two deaths begin to read as one operation with different outcomes. One in Las Vegas, one in Los Angeles, both shaped by movement, money, and decisions made earlier than the trigger pulls themselves according to assembled testimony and documented sequence now presented carefully for review by viewers worldwide today.
That makes it sound like maybe he was responsible for that murder, which has never been proven. That's a very serious thing.
But you have Keefe D over in Vegas now, getting ready to go on trial for that case, saying those things. Yeah.
Behind both deaths sat a quieter force. Industry pressure did not carry weapons, yet it shaped exposure. Contracts dictated travel. Appearances drove movement. Guns pulled triggers, but schedules pulled bodies into rooms and streets. Biggie's team reportedly raised concerns about Los Angeles, yet promotional demand stayed firm. The album launch overrode caution. Risk assessments bent under deadlines. The path forward stayed set, not because danger was unseen, but because obligation outweighed restraint in rooms far from the street where business decisions were framed as routine operations with little pause for consequence or long-term human cost felt later everywhere else.
But I think more than just the actual murders and the tragic deaths of both Tupac and Biggie.
The same pattern appears when looking back at Tupac's final night. He rode without armed protection, shaped by police pressure and legal warnings. That absence did not signal confidence. It reflected constraint. Safety choices narrowed under scrutiny. Business continuity remained priority. Concert plans continued. Movement stayed loud and visible. Institutions designed to manage risk focused on optics and compliance. Protection became secondary. When systems value order over safety, exposure grows quietly until consequences arrive, leaving responsibility scattered and difficult to claim across agencies, labels, and decision makers involved during those critical hours, leading to irreversible outcomes felt for decades afterward.
Like our issue, they'll say we had beef for 20 years, but I have hired both of his sons for different projects that I worked on, like both two different television shows, Quincy and...
Viewed together, these pressures reveal a system failure rather than isolated mistakes. Neither murder was prevented by institutions meant to guard lives at that level of visibility. Warnings existed, signals appeared, action stalled, power shielded itself through routine and hierarchy. Accountability blurred across departments, labels, and agencies. When responsibility spreads wide, consequences land nowhere specific. The outcome becomes tragedy without authorship. That absence of clear prevention remains as important as any trigger detail in understanding how both artists were left exposed despite their public stature and constant surveillance during peak fame years documented across records and recalled by witnesses later. What changes now lies in assembly. The evidence existed for years, scattered across interviews, tapes, and files. Permission to connect it did not. The documentary unifies testimony, audio, and footage into one record. That act alone reshapes understanding. Keith D's trial, scheduled for February 2026, adds pressure to that structure. Legal review now intersects public memory. The Biggie case remains officially unsolved, yet its framing has shifted from myth toward mechanism through alignment rather than speculation repeated without supporting sequence for the first time in decades across mainstream audiences worldwide, following renewed attention to these cases again with focus intact. This shift forces reevaluation of decades of assumptions built on distance and repetition. Familiar stories lose dominance when placed beside verified sequence. Public memory adjusts slowly, yet it adjusts. Listeners begin tracing actions instead of legends. The murders stop living as symbols alone. They become results of decisions, resources, and timing. That reframing does not promise closure. It provides clarity. Clarity holds weight because it resists spectacle and invites reflection grounded in documented movement rather than inherited narrative shared for years across media platforms and repeated without challenge until recent alignment forced a pause in collective understanding of events overall.